All right, so let's get started. Today is February 14th, the Valentine's Day of 2020. So this is the Longhorn Community Meeting, and I'm Shane Yang from Rancher Labs. I'm the maintainer of Longhorn. So in today's meeting, I will give update of the latest upcoming 0.8 release and see what we add at this moment. Let me share my screen. All right. So here you can see all the Longhorn's roadmap in the issues and milestones. And you can see that we're almost clear on the 0.8 release, and there's just a bunch of issues left. And you can also switch to the Zen Hub, which is our project management tool, to see the real-time issue list here. So what we have right now for the 0.8 release, in fact, I have some filter setting, right? This doesn't look right. Okay, this is much better. Okay, so a few things in the 0.8 release we're still working on. The first one is we add this support Kubernetes zone and the region feature as a per request of the user. So this issue also enable us to support cross availability zone replica placement during the scheduling period. Yeah, my network seems pretty bad at this moment. Okay, so the basic idea is that now Kubernetes allow you to use certain labels on your node to indicate that what's the physical location of this node. So if you want to have high availability, you can have your pod scheduled into different node and the storage scheduled into different node. So in fact, this interface has changed a bit since the first starting. I think before Kubernetes 1.17, we're using failure domain.beta.kubernetes io/region/zone to indicate that what is the region or zone you're going to specify for this node. So the zone will be something like US.east.1c, so it looks like totally Amazon style, AWS style, and the region will be US.east.1 /east/1. So that label has been updated in 1.17, as you say that it's going to be using topology.kubernetes.io/region and /zone. So in the upcoming 0.8 release, we add this feature to allow Longhorn to have soft anti-affinity rules in the when you schedule the replicas to make sure that replicas can be scheduled in the different zones. So in case of one zone failure, you still able to get your volumes content and the pod running in the different zones. It's especially useful in the EKS environment because AWS EKS by default is deployed across different zones. So in the traditional EKS deployment, if you are using EBS as your persistent volume, you are going to have a trouble when we have a one zone down scenario, because in that case, the zone, since the EBS volume resides within the zone and cannot be accessed across the zone, you are going to lose that volume contents during the pod. So I can give you a clear example of how it happens. Give me a moment. Let me find some of my old slides. Okay, here. So here is what's happened. So in the EKS scenario, if you have native block device like EBS and you use that for your persistent volume in your Kubernetes cluster, you'll see that here we have 3 zones, and each of them have 1 node just in the in our this scenario. And the pod is going to access the EBS volume fine because they're in the same zone. But in this case, but what if you have this zone failure happening, and the pod is no longer able to access to your EBS because, of course, EBS is on the same in the same zone and it goes down as well. So then we were going to have because it's Kubernetes, right? So it's going to spin up another pod and trying to use the same EBS volume. But this pod cannot be started because EBS volume is residing in the zone 1A, which is not accessible by zone 1B. So in this case, your service will interrupt because your service cannot access to this persistent storage, and then you will have a persistent service, the service outage. So but with Longhorn, the things have become different. So the diagram here, it becomes a little more complicated because we have Longhorn in the middle to acting as middleman between the pod and the EBS volume. So different Longhorn replicas is using the different EBS volumes residing in the different availability zones. And of course, we still have replicas provide the support to the Longhorn engine, and Longhorn engine provide the persistent volume to the pod. In this case, if zone 1A goes down, still the EBS volume with zone 1A goes down with it as well. But as in Kubernetes, we are going to start another pod, which is going to still bring up the Longhorn volume with it. And the Longhorn will find out there are still 2 replicas outside zone 1A, which can be used to form this volume. So that is how Longhorn will still ensure your service availability after a catastrophic failure of zone 1A. So that is one thing we want to add. We have added in 0.8 release to have this ability to scheduling volumes, volume replicas across different availability zones. All right, let's go back to our GitHub. Okay, so this feature we have added in I think about 2 weeks back, and working on that. We almost finished at this time, just some UI work in the end. So another important feature we have right now is working on the life upgrade version 2. And in this issue, we are going to have more robust life upgrade compared to what we have done for the 0.6 release and 0.7 release. The thing is, we want to use the instance manager for the upgrade because before 0.6 release, we don't have the concept of instance manager, which is used to reduce our consumption of the pod and the node. But then we introduce instance manager, and now the life upgrade is going to happen between the instance manager. So we cannot use the instance manager for the same version of the engine. So that's prevent us from having very smooth life upgrade experience. So in 0.8, we have rewrote this part, and we have decoupled whatever logic resides in the engine from the instance manager, and make instance manager a more separate standalone component. So whenever you need to upgrade to the next version, you can still do that in the same instance manager, even with a different version of the engine image. So I would assume that when we release 0.8.1 release, you are going to finally get back your live upgrade feature. So you don't need to shut down your workload for the upgrade purpose. So there's another issue we probably want to put into at the last moment in 0.8 release is we want to, many users of Longhorn has noticed that sometimes when you have a bad network connection, you're going to have a faulted volume because that Longhorn engine cannot reach to the replica. So it declares this volume is no longer able to use. But the thing is, after that, we require user to manually click the salvage option and to repair the volume. But in fact, when you have some network conditions and this happens, and they cause unnecessary manual intervention in your process of using the volume. So what we want to do is we want to think if there's some way we can ease the burden of user to click salvage. In this case, for example, if we detect that the controller, the Longhorn engine, and lost connection to the old replica at the same time, I will assume that is the one at fault will be the engine rather than the replica. So it will going to salvage itself automatically. And we're probably going to provide the option to do that as a default option. And when it salvages itself automatically, we should be able to just attach this volume back immediately without any trouble. So that is what our idea lies on in this issue. Since it's many users has so many users has give us feedbacks about that. It's really unexpected to see the faulted engine, even if they have network interruption. Traditionally, the requirement for the storage network is pretty high, because that we are providing the block device to the Linux kernel and to the Linux users, and that block device cannot respond, like say, stop responding after 10-20 seconds. So that will cause issues on the file system. So the network requirements is pretty high. But in fact, another thing we can do is, just in this case, we can recover the volume and reattach the volume automatically. In this way, we probably able to help user to just travel a little bit better on the more with unstable networks. So that's probably one last item highlights we want to throw in the 0.8 release. In fact, we should mark this as a highlight. Yes. So that's all the update from the 0.8 release, and we are expecting to get this out of door. I think probably next week, the week after, and certainly before the end of February. So after that, we're planning to have another maintenance release called 0.8.1, and we're targeting before the KubeCon, and we are also targeting the official GA release after that, doing at Q2 this year. So that's all for the update. All right. Do you have any questions? Okay, that's called this meeting. And thank you everybody for attending, and we'll see you later.